387,000. That's how many Pennsylvania households had their power or gas shut off last year. A record, 27% higher than 2022, $257. That's the average Pennsylvania electric bill right now. 2 years ago, it was $213, 860%. That's how much the price of grid capacity jumped in a single auction, and 94% of the demand growth behind it came from one thing: data centers. Not the kind that store your photos. Artificial intelligence facilities. More than 60 of them are in motion across Pennsylvania right now, and the largest natural gas power plant ever proposed in the United States is currently under construction on a dead coal site in Indiana County to feed them. The state approved that permit in 157 days. Its own internal projection was 285. Not 1 watt of it is for a Pennsylvania household. Here's what that costs on the ground. Last July, an 84-year-old woman in North Philadelphia passed out in her own living room. No air conditioning, temperatures over 100. Her power had been shut off earlier that summer and her daughter paid it back on. She's been taking cold showers at 1 in the morning to survive the night. The state's utility law project has testified that seniors across Pennsylvania are now keeping their homes at dangerous temperatures because they're on fixed incomes and the math no longer works. 1 in 4 Pennsylvania families now struggles to pay energy costs. 1 in 20 is carrying utility debt averaging over $1,200. And in July of 2026, after a full year of hearings, lawsuits, protests, and packed township meetings, the legislature passed one new rule: a reporting form. This is how it happened, and why almost nobody noticed until the concrete was already poured. If you want more reporting like this, subscribing costs you nothing and tells the algorithm to show it to people. Start with what actually got built, because the numbers are not intuitive. $20 billion. That's Amazon's investment in Pennsylvania, the largest private sector investment in state history. 2 anchor campuses, one in Luzerne County beside a nuclear plant, one in Bucks County on the old Fairless Works steel site along the Delaware. That Luzerne County site is worth pausing on. Amazon bought roughly 1,200 acres and an existing data center next to the reactor for $650 million, then tried to plug directly into the plant, bypassing the grid entirely. Federal regulators rejected that arrangement in late 2024. So the deal was restructured. The plant now sells Amazon power at retail, ramping toward 1,920 megawatts by 2032, under a contract running through 2042. The plant's owner expects roughly $18 billion in revenue over its life. The township rezoned 1,600 acres into a special data center overlay district to accommodate it. $25 billion. Blackstone's pledge for northeastern Pennsylvania. $10 billion and up. The Homer City conversion in Indiana County, where a New York private equity firm is turning a shuttered coal plant into an AI campus powered by a new gas plant on the same ground. 7 turbines, 4.5 gigawatts. That single facility would be the largest gas-fired power plant in the country. $6 billion in Lancaster, 1.3 gigawatts in Cumberland County, expandable to nearly 2. A nuclear reactor at 3 Mile Island being restarted under a 20-year contract with Microsoft. Why Pennsylvania? 3 reasons. Marcellus shale gas underneath it, an aging fleet of power plants with grid connections already built, ready to be repurposed, and a state government that decided to win this industry by moving faster than anybody else. Now, watch how that reaches an 84-year-old woman's electric bill. Pennsylvania sits inside a 13-state regional grid run by an organization called PJM. Every year, PJM holds a capacity auction, paying power plants to guarantee availability during demand spikes. Whatever it costs flows down through the utilities onto every bill in the region, automatically. No vote. 2023, $28.92 per megawatt day. 2024, $269.92. That's an 860% increase in 12 months. Total cost went from $2.2 billion to $14.7 billion. The next auction hit a price ceiling, $329.17. The one after that, December 2025, cleared at $333.44 and still came up more than 6,000 megawatts short of what the grid needs to stay reliable. Who's driving it? PJM answered that itself. In its own December 2025 announcement of roughly 5,250 megawatts of forecast demand growth, nearly 5,100 megawatts came from data centers, 94%. Wholesale electricity in Pennsylvania rose 48.3% in 2025. Then another 75.5% in the first quarter of 2026 alone. Generation rates statewide climbed between 18 and 52%, depending on your utility. So trace the chain. Tech companies commit hundreds of billions to AI infrastructure. That commitment registers as future demand in a grid forecast. The forecast sets an auction price. The auction price lands on every bill in 13 states, including a retiree in Philadelphia who has never used an AI product in her life and whose air conditioner has been broken for 2 years. She was never asked. There is no mechanism by which she could have been. And seniors absorb this differently than anyone else. 2 reasons. One financial, one physical. Financially, a fixed income doesn't adjust for a capacity auction. Social Security's cost of living increase runs off a general inflation basket, not what happened to electricity in your grid region. When the bill goes up $40 a month, that $40 comes out of something else. For older Pennsylvanians, it comes out of food, medication, or cooling. Run the arithmetic. The average bill rose $44 a month, from $213 to $257. That's $528 a year. For a household living on Social Security alone, that is not a line item you absorb. It's a decision you make every month, 12 times a year, about what you go without. Physically, older adults regulate body temperature less efficiently. Many take blood pressure medication, heart medication, or diuretics that impair the body's ability to shed heat or mask the early warning signs of heat stress. So the population least able to absorb a rate increase is the same population for whom turning off the air conditioning carries the highest physical risk. Here's what that sounds like in testimony. December 2025, a public hearing on a proposed rate increase. A retiree from Allentown told regulators the increase would fall hardest on people on fixed incomes and seniors fighting to survive, and would push more people into energy insecurity. A single mother at the same hearing said she was already struggling with taxes and utilities. A Philadelphia woman whose husband depends on an electric-powered heart machine said she's afraid of not being able to pay for electricity. Then mentioned a friend who froze to death 15 years ago because she was scared she couldn't afford heat. A woman in Clearfield County with diabetes said she doesn't turn on the heat in winter because she doesn't want the bill to climb and can't afford air conditioning at all. She has fans. Her bill went from $50 or $60 a month to somewhere between $120 and $170. What frightened her most, she said, was getting sick and dying from the heat. July 2026, Pittsburgh. Residents of a low-income senior high-rise went days without working air conditioning during a heat wave. One man told a TV crew it was like hell living there, that nothing was getting done, and asked how the people responsible would feel if their own mother or father were treated that way. That same summer, Philadelphia's health department reported multiple heat-related deaths. Officials would only say the victims were all over 55. In the Lehigh Valley that May, 2 men, 78 and 76, died of hyperthermia inside their own homes. 300,000 households a year use Pennsylvania's Low-Income Energy Assistance Program. In fall 2025, a federal shutdown delayed its opening by a month, and the state had to move the winter shutoff moratorium up to November 1st so people wouldn't lose heat waiting. One local assistance group reported that of 204 households it helped, 34 were headed by someone 60 or older. And notice what counts as relief here. During the 2025 heat season, one utility ran a program giving free electric fans to seniors. An 89-year-old woman who got one said it was fantastic, wonderful, and that it helped her budget. A 77-year-old said she was grateful because she could move it room to room. Those women were genuinely glad. The program is better than nothing. But hold two facts side by side. In the same state, in the same year, the data center industry received a sales tax exemption worth $188 million and permits processed at what a state agency employee internally described as a concierge level of service. The response to seniors who can't afford to cool their homes was a box fan. In summer 2026, the State Utility Commission issued a public advisory telling Pennsylvanians to brace for higher bills after heat waves pushed regional demand to its highest level in 14 years. That's the guidance. Brace yourself. Now to Indiana County, where you can watch the other side of this ledger get approved. The Homer City Generating Station was the largest coal plant in Pennsylvania. It closed in July 2023 after 2 bankruptcies. The cooling towers were imploded in early 2025, and most people watching assumed that was an ending. It was a beginning. 3,200 acres, $10 billion and up. 7 turbines burning Marcellus gas, delivered through a new 5.5-mile pipeline, for which the developer received a $5 million state grant. The emissions math, according to the Clean Air Council, roughly 17 million tons of carbon dioxide a year, equivalent to burning 18 billion pounds of coal. 3 environmental organizations calculated it would emit more greenhouse gas annually than every car on every road in Pennsylvania. The permit also allows 2 kinds of particulate matter, the kind associated with heart and lung illness, plus volatile organic compounds and nitrogen oxide. The Department of Environmental Protection issued that permit on November 18, 2025, 157 days after application. Projection had been 285. 571 public comments were submitted. Do that math. The agency cut its own review timeline by 45% on the largest gas plant ever proposed in this country, while processing 571 objections. Then a public records request surfaced internal communications. In them, a department staffer described the goal as providing a concierge level of service. An attorney for one of the groups challenging the permit put it this way: the agency's job is to protect Pennsylvania residents living alongside major industrial projects, not to be a concierge for industry. The speed wasn't an accident. It was policy. The administration built programs that refund permit fees when reviews run late, that let outside professionals conduct initial reviews, and that fast-track favored projects. In December of 2025, 3 environmental groups appealed, arguing the department ignored its own environmental justice policy and accepted flawed emissions methodology. The same day, a separate appeal was filed on behalf of 13 young Pennsylvanians. Youngest, 2 months old. Oldest, 21. An attorney for one group called the permit a death sentence for the people who will breathe the fumes, rushed through, riddled with errors, and built not to keep anyone's lights on, but to enrich hedge fund investors and technology billionaires. There's also a water question nobody has answered. The Homer City site holds an uncapped allocation from a 5 billion-gallon reservoir. The company's application did not specify how much water the power plant is expected to consume. At a hearing on the pipeline permit in May of 2026, more than 40 people rallied in the street in downtown Indiana beforehand, with cars honking as they passed. More than 100 packed into a theater to speak. Farmers testified that their water supply is already strained by more frequent summer droughts, and that they were being asked to share it with something whose consumption nobody would quantify. To be fair, Plenty of people in Indiana County want this. A farmer a mile from the site told a reporter that if it creates jobs and hires locally, then giddy up, adding there's nothing left in Indiana County. A hotel housekeeping manager whose father was an electrician at the old plant said business has picked up and it gives her staff work. 1,200 construction workers were on site as of early 2026, projected to reach 3,500. The developer claims 10,000 construction jobs total. The permanent job estimate is about 1,000. And across the entire $20 billion Amazon investment, Bucks County, Luzerne County, all of it, the governor's own estimate for permanent jobs statewide is 1,250. $20 billion. 1,250 jobs. In August 2026, Amazon confirmed it's in discussions to be Homer City's tenant. Now Bucks County, where no one noticed, stops being a figure of speech. March 2025, the Falls Township Board of Supervisors approves a 10-building, 2 million square foot campus on the old steel site. June, Amazon is named as tenant. By mid-2026, it's more than halfway built. Then, residents read the filings. Average daily water use, about 19,000 gallons. Peak cooling demand, when the servers run hardest, approximately 4.4 million gallons a day, drawn from the Delaware River. That's a 230-fold gap between the average and the peak. That gap is what AI does to a building's water profile. Generators, 76 already approved. 286 more under review. 283 gas, 3 diesel. Amazon's own materials rate each at roughly 65 decibels, about a city bus passing at 20 feet. The company says it doesn't matter because the nearest home is 5,000 feet away, and these are backup units. At a July 2026 public meeting, an acoustical engineer in the audience ran the math out loud. A typical unit produces about 73 decibels at 23 feet. If all of them ran simultaneously during an extended outage, noise within half a mile could reach 65 decibels, a level that interferes with normal speech. Hundreds packed a high school auditorium for that meeting. It ran nearly 4 hours. Someone shouted, "Shame on you people," and the room applauded. The questions weren't hysterical. A mother of 3, 13 years in the township, said she'd only just found out officials had been working on a data center 6 miles from her home, near hundreds of houses and about a dozen schools. A business owner a mile out asked if there was any emergency plan if something went wrong inside the building. A real estate agent asked why there was no community benefit agreement, no binding commitment of anything to the township in return. More than 4,000 people signed a petition. In February, Amazon launched a community fund. In July, it distributed $150,000 to 22 local organizations. $150,000 against a $20 billion investment. That's roughly 0.07 of 1%. This is also a part of Bucks County with a large retirement age population, a mid-century planned community where people bought houses decades ago because it was quiet and affordable and who now live there on fixed incomes. They absorb both ends, the regional bill increase and whatever the building next door turns out to sound like. Then, on July 27, 2026, the same supervisors who approved the project declared part of their own zoning ordinance substantively invalid, a legal maneuver buying roughly 6 months to rewrite the rules. The board chair explained the delay. Through the entire land development process, he said, they didn't have anyone show up at the meetings. That's the thesis of this entire video in one sentence. It wasn't hidden. It was boring and technical and scheduled on a Tuesday night, and it moved faster than anyone's capacity to notice. Northeastern Pennsylvania shows what happens once people do notice. In Hazel Township, where site work had already started, residents described bright lights, grinding, and banging through the night, despite an ordinance prohibiting overnight operations between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. One resident told the board she was appalled they'd even consider it. because if they said yes, the whole area was finished. At a later meeting, she asked what a data center does for human beings and answered herself, nothing. She also gave them a number. When her house was appraised, she was told the view added $35,000 to $40,000 to its value, and the buildings are only half of it. Moving this much power requires new transmission. In one Luzerne County township, the utility plans a 500 kilovolt line on towers as tall as 240 feet, running past farm buildings that already sit beneath a 235 kilovolt line. Northeastern Pennsylvania now has proposals spread across more than a dozen campuses and applications filed in at least 7 townships in one county alone. At a county zoning forum, an engineer testified he's met residents in Virginia who now sleep in their basements because they can't tolerate the humming. November 2025, Hazel Township rejected the campus unanimously. June 2026, it passed a 6-month pause. And it's not one township. Look at the vote counts piling up across this state. Hampton Township, Cumberland County, 5-0 against a data center zoning amendment, after nearly 24 speakers and not one in favor. East Vincent Township, Chester County, unanimous denial of a 1.9 million square foot project. The developer appealed within 5 weeks. A borough in Lackawanna County created a data center overlay district by a 5-2 vote, then denied the actual project 5-0 after 3 council members resigned. Middlesex Township, Cumberland County, a planning commission meeting that started at 7 in the evening ran past 11. Falls Township, Morrisville, Oliphant, and others have all taken the 6-month zoning pause. Meanwhile, one Pennsylvania utility reported that its advanced pipeline of data center requests had reached 28.3 gigawatts. For scale, Pennsylvania's entire electric grid peaks around 30. One utility, one pipeline. Nearly the whole state's peak demand. Then there's Montour County, the smallest county in Pennsylvania, population around 18,000. A power company sought to rezone roughly 870 acres of farmland for an AI campus, with Amazon as partner. Here's the attendance record. September, 70 residents at a planning commission meeting. October, 150 at a fire hall that had to open its garage doors for overflow. November, close to 200 at a planning commission meeting that ran from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. The company spoke 90 minutes. Residents used the rest of the day. Organizers said what struck them was the range: physicians, farmers, students, residents in their 90s. A farming family whose land has been in production since 1881 asked the commission to please do their research, please talk to the community, and please not take a faceless company's description of what was happening, because we're your community and you serve the people. A farmer working 105 acres on land his grandfather bought in 1901 said it in 9 words: "If we can't get water, we can't survive." Most of that county is on private wells. The petition against the rezoning gathered roughly 3,000 signatures, about 1/6 of the entire county's population. February 10, 2026, the commissioners voted 3-0 to deny it, stating on the record that no evidence showed the benefits outweighed documented and foreseeable public harms. 16 days later, on an earnings call, the company's chief executive described that defeat as a short-term hurdle. He wasn't being flippant. He was being accurate. Under Pennsylvania law, a municipality cannot ban data centers or impose an open-ended moratorium. All a town can do is declare its own zoning invalid and buy about 180 days. 6 months. Then the fight resets. That leads to Harrisburg, and the reason this is getting worse instead of better. The public isn't confused about this. A March 2026 poll found 1 in 5 Pennsylvanians call data centers a crisis, with another 43% calling them a problem. 64% combined. Separate polling found local opposition rose from 42% in December 2025 to 63% by late July 2026. The State Farm Bureau's board voted unanimously for a statewide moratorium. So, what did the legislature do? A bill repealing the data center sales tax exemption, an exemption costing $188 million this fiscal year, projected to reach $517 million a year by 2030, passed the State House 197-5. 197-5. It died in the Senate. A bill letting municipalities pause development locally passed the House 201-1, cleared a Senate committee 11-0. Never got a floor vote. A 3-year moratorium bill sits in committee. The Senate Majority Leader said he doesn't think they should be looking at individual bills right now, that he wants to address it holistically, and that he's not entirely sure it can be accomplished through legislation at all. That legislator represents Indiana County. Homer City is in his district. What passed in the July 2026 budget was a requirement that data centers over 10 megawatts file an annual report disclosing electricity and water use. A form. That's Pennsylvania's new AI data center law. Regulators moved faster. The Utility Commission adopted a model tariff for very large customers, endorsing the principle that whoever causes a cost should pay it, but it's guidance, not a mandate. Utilities still have to file their own versions. One utility did agree, for the first time in Pennsylvania, to shield ordinary ratepayers from data center costs, with data centers contributing $11 million toward low-income relief. Here's the fine print on that. The company had asked for a $356 million annual increase, a 33% jump. Regulators cut it to roughly $275 million. Residential rates still rose 4.9% on July 1, 2026, roughly $7.40 a month for a typical household, plus a new $15 monthly customer charge that applies whether you use any electricity or not. That was the utility's first distribution rate increase since 1916, arriving the same year its data center request pipeline reached that same 28.3 gigawatts. The governor's office points to a price cap it negotiated with the grid operator, which it says saved consumers about $45 billion over 4 years. That deserves precision rather than outrage. It's a modeled figure, the gap between what the auction cleared at and what analysts estimated it would have hit, uncapped. It's a real avoided cost. It is not a reduction in anyone's bill. Bills went up. And here's the part almost nobody in Pennsylvania is discussing. $660 to $750 billion. That's what the 5 largest technology companies are guiding toward in capital spending for 2026, roughly double the prior year. That commitment is what generated the demand forecast, that generated the auction price, that generated the bill increase. But that spending is showing strain. July 2026, S&P cut Oracle's credit rating to 1 notch above junk, naming a single customer as a central credit risk. Credit default swaps on one AI infrastructure company hit levels implying roughly a 50% chance of default. Moody's flagged around $1 trillion in combined debt and lease obligations across the sector. Alphabet posted its first negative free cash flow quarter since going public in 2004. In the Federal Reserve's May 2026 Stability Survey, half of surveyed market contacts named AI as a potential shock to the financial system, up from 9% a year earlier. So run both outcomes for Pennsylvania. If the build-out continues, the gas plants get built, the emissions arrive, the water gets drawn, the bills keep climbing. If it contracts, Pennsylvania is still holding turbines, transmission lines, and capacity commitments built for demand that never showed up, and ratepayers pay for that infrastructure anyway. Homer City's turbines don't unbuild themselves if the tenant walks. Either way, the 84-year-old with the broken air conditioner pays. Pennsylvania proved ordinary people can still win. A county of 18,000 stopped a multi-billion-dollar company by sitting in a room for 7 hours. It also proved how narrow that win is. 6 months, not a veto. A short-term hurdle. The infrastructure going up right now will outlast every contract, every official who signed off on it, and most of the people objecting. The question was never whether artificial intelligence gets built. It's who pays for it, who gets asked first, and who finds out from a zoning notice after the concrete is already poured. Was your area affected? Drop it in the comments, the county, and what changed. And if this was worth your time, like the video and subscribe.